My name is Kirsten and I'm a grateful recovering addict.
Kirsten!
Thanks everyone who's here. So today's my birthday and everyone says it's a special day, but to me the most important date is the date I cleaned up, because that's when I truly did have life again. So my clean date's on the 11th of December 2016, and it's a very special date because I walked into treatment on the 10th of December, and that was exactly 1 year after my stepfather passed away. So I kind of went into rehab exactly a year after he had committed suicide due to his addiction and alcoholism. So my childhood, it was quite a hectic childhood. I was experienced and around a lot of drugs and alcohol. My dad's an addict. He's 13 and a half years clean now, but growing up he was very much in active addiction and alcoholism, and I saw a lot of it. When my mom was about 6 months pregnant with me, they got separated and then later got divorced. So my mom raised myself and my older brother of 2 years by herself as a single mother. And when my dad was there, it was very unpleasant. He wasn't a nice person to be around. And so my mom did the best she could with what she had and did her best to raise myself and my older brother. So then at the age of about 4, my dad used to use with both my uncles. It was Brian, Sean and Gavin, so those are the 3 brothers, and they used to use drugs together. And so they would always go to a dealer's house or be in a bit of a crack house, or call it what you want, but the ones, it was just myself and my cousin, and my brother was sick and he stayed at home. So I remember it was just myself and my cousin, and all my uncles and my dad went to do a drug deal, or they left the house and left us both behind a couch in a crack house or drug dealer's house. And then I was sexually raped by 3 Nigerian men. And at that age I didn't really know what was happening. I was only about 4. But there's a part of which I believe now, that a part of my soul kind of died, a part of me kind of died. And I became very, very angry towards the world, and especially men. And I was very confused. I didn't know what happened, but it was very traumatic. I spoke to my mom about it, and my dad kind of knows. Well, my dad knows, I know he knows, but it's something still to this day we've never discussed. But we both know that what happened. We both know what happened. So my mom later met another man by the name of Paul, who was my stepfather. And to me, he's one of the most important people that, he's obviously passed on now, but one of the most important people I had in my life. He became more of a father to me than my dad was. And I would always say to him, when I get married, I want you to walk me down the aisle. He's very special to me. So she later married him and my mom later married him and had another child. So that's my little half sister Jodie. She's 10 years old now. And life was good. I was happy. I felt like I had a family back, or I had a family. It's the first time I felt like I had a family and connection, where before it was kind of growing up in a broken home. So I was very happy. Life was good. My stepfather did quite well financially, and he paid for my school fees. My dad didn't pay much. Even later when he cleaned up, he was still, not very much in the picture. I didn't really come to the party at all with my mom. My stepfather clothed me, put a roof over my head, paid for my school fees. He did everything. So to me, I called him dad. And then he had 2 other children from his previous marriage, Josh and Jordan, who are my stepbrothers. They're much older than me. And then my other older brother, Tyron. And from the age of about 5 to 10, 11, I was sexually molested by all 3 of them, including their friends. And it would be a matter of, I didn't even want to go to sleep at night. I'd be terrified to fall asleep because I knew what was going to happen. I didn't feel safe in my own home with my own family, and then again I became very, very angry towards the world, and especially to men, and I felt like I couldn't trust anyone, and I was very broken. From a very young age, I can remember myself always having feeling like there's something missing. There's always that something missing. I would always try excel in sports and my academics to kind of get that acknowledgement and that affirmation, because that's the only way I knew that I would make someone proud, or I'd be acknowledged. Otherwise I felt that I was kind of useless and not important, and no one no one was good to me because of everything that had happened, and I think it was a lot of self-pity too, but yeah, I became a very broken little girl, very, very broken. So yeah, school was good. I was born in the south of Joburg, and then I later moved on to the north because my stepfather Paul lived here, and we got a nice home together. My mom he was constantly traveling overseas. He'd be gone for like 4 months or 3 months and be back 2 weeks. So he was constantly out the country. So my mom pretty much was like a single mother of 5 kids. So it was myself, my brother, my 2 stepbrothers, and my half sister. So there wasn't much time for my mom to kind of give everyone balanced attention and be able to see exactly what's going on. And my stepdad's addiction and alcoholism also kind of became a problem. He was an addict. We didn't know that. He was an addict and an alcoholic, and we didn't know that until later in their marriage. So school was good. I did very well with sports. I loved my netball. I was doing modeling at that stage. Very good at cross country, athletics. Whatever I did, I gave it my all. I was a bit of a perfectionist and extremist. So if I wasn't going to do something, like I'm going to show you, I'm definitely not going to do it at all. Or if I really wanted to do something, I would make sure I'm number one. And so yeah, I enjoyed sports. That was my healthy escape. And academically, from grade 4 to grade 7, I was top student, top 10, got the blue certificate. So I loved my academics. It meant a lot to me. Before exams, like 2 months before I'd start studying, I was very much like, yeah, quite a nerd. And then yeah, so at home things started becoming a bit bad. My stepdad was in the country for longer periods of time, and he was in and out of rehab, and you know, my little sister was young, so all the attention was put on my stepdad's addiction and my little sister's my little sister, raising my little sister, and she was young. So I kind of started slipping back and hanging around the wrong people. I always call myself like an old soul because I always hung out with older people, could only relate to older people. And yeah, so I started smoking weed at the age of 10, not every day, but that was the first time I tried a drug. Is it fine if I use drugs by name, Gibson? Okay. So yeah, I tried weed, and my my brothers were all older than me, so I told them, and they were all like, okay, we also do it, come upstairs. We had 3 properties in the house, so the one was far away from everything, and we would all just start smoking weed together every night. And we got quite into it. We had like a whole room dedicated to it, and I mean, it was an every night thing, and they were doing it all the time. We always had it on us. And yeah, so I continued hanging out with older people and definitely the wrong crowds. And I remember at that stage my stepfather had kidney, pancreas and liver failure, and we were told at one stage that we must hurry to the hospital. He's got 4 hours left, and we thought he was going to pass away. So my mom was visiting with him in hospital from early hours of the morning till late hours of the evening, just making sure he's okay. I mean, he couldn't walk, he was in nappies, like my mom had to take care of him completely. And no one could see me slipping back, and at that age my mom trusted me with her bank cards and everything. And then I tried then it was my drug of choice, which was cat. Had my first line of cat at about 11, 12, and I remember I used the whole of those July school holidays, and I went back to primary school, and that girl went back to high school, and then we never spoke about it again. And then 4 months down the line, just out of the blue, I decided to switch my old phone on and call up the dealer, which I'd never done by myself. And from that day onwards, I used every single day until I went to treatment. It just swept me off my feet, and it just took me very quickly. So my mom never knew anything about it at first. She started getting suspicious, but she was so much in denial. She didn't want to believe that her ex-husband, her current husband, and her daughter are now addicts. And I've got a lot of addiction that runs through the family. My aunt who committed suicide, she was also an addict. My dad's side of the family, my aunt's there also drove off of a cliff on the way to picking up drugs. So there's like been a lot of drugs and alcohol and addiction and alcoholism in my family. My grandfather died, I think, 22 years clean and sober. So yeah, it's in the family for me. And yeah, so I started progressing, and I was using every day, and my mom would find the stuff, and I would give her some long story of what it was or whose it was. And I think she wanted to believe me because she didn't want to actually believe the reality of it. So yeah, I was in grade 7, and at the beginning of grade 8, and I asked my mom that I need to go to rehab. I remember I searched the place on my phone, and I made the appointment and everything. And I remember I was sitting outside on the patio with the pool in front of me, and I thought to myself that, because I genuinely believed I couldn't live without it. I believed I couldn't wake up in the morning and breathe without it. I couldn't do anything without it. And I was using it every day by myself. I hadn't had any friends that were like, yeah, I'm an addict, I went to rehab, and I never understood it. And I just believed that I couldn't live without this drug. So eventually I went to treatment, and it was, I think I was so young, I can't say I wasn't ready, I wasn't ready. I was so young, and I wasn't willing, and life hadn't become more difficult enough. And yeah, I actually relapsed in the rehab because I had a day pass, and then the next day I was leaving. So nothing changed. It just gave me like 2.5 weeks of clean time, and I continued. 4 days after that, I was introduced to my other drug of choice, which became crystal meth. The person who introduced me to it by the needle, so I was injecting that, and from there it took me very quick to go back to rehab. My marks and my life at school was deteriorating. I was isolating. I didn't want to be around anyone. I didn't want to go to the party. It was never about the party for me. It was just the fact that I hated myself so much. I couldn't sit with myself, and I wanted to feel everything and anything but myself. It was my escape. It was Kirsten not feeling like Kirsten, because Kirsten didn't like Kirsten. And I was just pretty much using every single day, and then I was obviously stealing and lying and cheating and doing whatever it takes to get money. And it didn't take long again. I dropped out of school, also because I was in and out rehab. So my school eventually said to me, when I was in Rampart High at one stage, I was in and out rehab, they eventually said to me, come on, we'll give you this one last chance. And they were very on board with my recovery, and I just wasn't willing. And had an IDC hearing that one day, and I just never pitched to it. And from there, they were going to suspend me if I didn't pitch, so I kind of like left before they could. And I went back to rehab and didn't go back to school for a while after that. Then I ended up going to another school that didn't last long either, because drugs was my #1 thing, and anything else in life got in the way of my using, and that's all I cared for. So yeah, I was also involved in a lot of toxic relationships. My one ex-boyfriend, Cameron, I was very young when I started dating him, but it didn't last very long. He ended up in rehab, and that's how we broke up. But he was very abusive. He was a bit older than me. He held me hostage once for 2 days. My mom found me beaten up at a garage. He took my head and bashed it into the pavement, and a security guard said to me in front of my mom, and my mom came straight there without asking questions, because I was supposed to have been clean at that stage, and she was wondering where I am, knowing I'm obviously using. And that's when we went to, he had hit me many times, and I would lie to my mom saying this bruise is from falling or from this and that. And that time I finally said to my mom, he has been beating me up. Every other time I didn't want her to know, because I loved him so much. My mom wouldn't let me spend time with him. So I defended him and said, no, it's from this or that. So yeah, we laid charges at the police station. My dad just came there to speak to me about saying, like, you shouldn't have done this, you're not allowed to see him. And my dad just walked away. He didn't even stay for laying the charges and all that. So then again, my dad was getting very angry, and he wasn't very much in the picture with my addiction. My mom would always minimize it because she didn't want him to think she's a bad mother. Those were her exact words. She didn't want him to think that she's failed us as a mother. So he could see something was up, like he would see I had like something here by my nose, and he would know I was using, but I think he was also kind of in denial. He didn't want to believe it. So yeah, I was out of school at that stage. I ruined my modelling career as well as my netball, which was everything to me. I played for Gauteng, and I got kicked out the team because they drug tested me. I got kicked out. I was going to go to New York for modelling, and I was kicked out of that. I lost my place in it. I won a whole competition, and they drug tested me, and I wasn't able to go. So then all my dreams and like my goals were shattered, and I felt more worthless. And I had a lot of self-pity because everyone could see I was young and I was hooked on drugs, and they'd feel very bad for me, and I would milk it. I would be like, yes, it's horrible. Like, I would enjoy the sympathy, and I started feeling sorry for myself. So yeah, my addiction progressed constantly in and out rehabs, been arrested a few times, had the church bail me out of jail. I was just a wreck. I was an absolute wreck, and I think I weighed, I was like in my 40s when I went to treatment last time. I weighed 42 kilograms. I was tiny. Like I had like half an eyebrow. I looked really bad. I didn't know I did. I thought I looked so beautiful when I walked into treatment, but I didn't. So yeah, my addiction, my drugs progressed, and I later started doing heroin. I tried everything, but at the end, my main one was crystal, then heroin, and then another drug called GHB. Yeah, so everything progressed. I was in another toxic relationship where we actually met in recovery, and then we relapsed together. That was just after my stepdad killed himself. I went to a meeting, came home, and my mom said she was fighting with him. Then we bashed the door down, and I just said to my mom, he's dead. I just knew it. And he committed suicide. And as sick and warped as it might be, some people don't get it. I'm not angry at him at all. My mom can't even mention his name. But I try to speak to my sister as much about him and the person he was as possible. Although my mom's not always happy about it, because I know how it is to be in that darkness. I mean, I attempted suicide a few times, and once was a very close call. But I'm not angry at him, because I knew that I understood that darkness, and it's not a way out, but he couldn't see the way out. And he's no longer in pain and misery, because before he was dead about 4 years before he even killed himself. He just couldn't see the light. So yeah, my stepfather committed suicide, and then eventually I relapsed. I got through that clean with the program. I was in and out of the rooms, I knew the program, I knew the 12 steps, I knew exactly what to say in a meeting, I knew everything, but I never actually put in the work. And I remember I'd always say to my counselor, how do you do it? And he's just like, 5 pillars. And I'm like, it can't just be 5 pillars. Like, the whole of my addiction, 5 pillars isn't going to save me. And I just thought like I was going to be that one that just didn't make it, and I was okay with that. So yeah, the last relapse I had was the most intense one. My ex ended up going to treatment, and he got his help, and from me it was just downwards from there. I eventually got kicked out of home. I was in and out of crack houses. I didn't have a place to call home. I was sleeping on friends' couches until they kicked me out, and I was becoming a burden, or they didn't trust me in their house alone. And then I really mingled with very, very bad people, and became friends with definitely the wrong crowd, where people that like have guns and do robins and just horrible things. And I always saw things happening in movies, and I thought like it wasn't real life until I experienced it, and it was very scary. But at the end I stopped caring. I completely stopped caring. I started escorting and got involved in prostitution and things that like I promised myself I'd never do. I remember when like I started smoking weed, I would be like, I'd never put anything up my nose. And then once I was on cut, I was like, I'll never touch crystal meth. And then I did that. And then I said I'd never ever do heroin, and then I still did that. And I said I'd never, and I judged those people broken, the people that sold their body for drugs. And like I thought it was the most disgusting thing in the world. And eventually that's where it led me. I wasn't allowed home, because anything I laid my eyes on I would steal. I wasn't trusted around my sister, who's my everything. No one wanted me. I was banned from the whole area I stayed in. I stayed in Rampart Ridge. There's a like ADT, but it's called RRVA there, and they would escort me out of the area when I was seen. I remember the once I was at the spa, which is down the road from my mom's house, and my brother saw me then, he beat me up. And everyone kind of, like that community is very tight, everyone knows everyone, and everyone kind of just watched and didn't do anything about it. And my mom's there, and I looked at her from down there, and I thought, what an evil woman. And yeah, so my family gave up on me. My dad allowed me back at the house once, and then I messed that up again. I was so sick, I would send him my location if I'm at a crack house or something, and I would send my location and be like, help, just so he can fetch me. I can go back home, steal more things, and then leave the house again. And he would literally drag me out of a crack house. He would find me he would wake me up, and I'd have like needles all over the bed. And I stopped caring about everything and everyone, all those people that I loved. And before that, I had this conscience, and like I meant well. As bad as I was using drugs, and I wasn't being a good person, but I always meant well. My dad always said to me, although you keep messing up, I can see you mean well. But at the end, I didn't mean well at all, and I lost every bit of self-respect, every moral, every value that I had. I lost every bit of self-worth, self-value, self-love that I ever had, and because of what I was doing to get money, I would use more before it, make sure I'm very high during it, and then use even more afterwards to forget it. And it was just an ongoing cycle. And that's all. In my head, I justified it like it's better than stealing from other people. That was my justification. So, yeah, things were very bad. I mean, I tried to commit suicide a few times. I was using excessively. A few months before going into treatment, my good friend actually passed away in my arms after him and I were using together. And by the grace of God, that wasn't me, because me and him used the exact same amounts that night, and unfortunately he just didn't make it. And I called people in recovery to the rescue again, to Kirsten, and the way they viewed me and how my behaviors were, they even said to me, "Are you joking?" Because it was 3 a.m, and they said, "Are you just saying this? Are you being for real?" And I said, like, "I'm very serious," and they came. And that night I had to watch someone's mother look at her dead little boy, something I was a part of, and it took me very long to forgive myself with that one. Only recently have I been able to, and make amends with her as well. But yeah, so I knew the program, and life was really horrible, and I was so skinny. I had my mom eventually gave up on me completely. She did the whole tough love, and I thought she was evil for it, but now, since I've loved myself, I can see and understand what love is, and that was the most loving act she could have ever given me and herself, is to walk away and just let me come when I'm ready. And the same thing happened with my father. He allowed me back into his home a few weeks before I cleaned up, and I stole everything from his safe, except for, I stole everything in his safe except for his things, only the things he had bought his girlfriend, because I thought I wouldn't do that to my dad. And then I sold everything, and that same night he caught me, and he realized that, because he knew I was home for like an hour, and obviously if Kirsten was home for minutes, they're going to check the safes and they're going to check everything. And I found the key for the safe, and I got kicked out of home. And I remember that night was, the way my dad looked at me was so heartbreaking, to see like the helplessness in him, and the powerlessness and the desperation in him, that like he had tried so many times. I mean, at that stage I had gone to 11 rehabs, and still here I am, and he'd done everything in his power to try help me. And as an addict or an alcoholic in recovery, watching your child, which I'm sure I heard Kirsten talk earlier, is the most horrific thing, because you know the only person that can save them is themselves. And that's what my dad had to watch me go through. And I remember at one stage he even said, "Come, let's go draw 10,000 rand and let's go use together, because I can't keep watching you do this." And there's many times he would find my drugs, and I'd be using in his house, and it would be his drug of choice as well. And I was just very selfish like that. I didn't care about anyone but myself. And he looked at me, and he obviously realized I stole everything, and he said to me that he can't do this anymore. And his girlfriend was very upset because I'd stolen all her things, and also things like that her family had passed on to her. And she was going through my wardrobe, and she was like pushing all my clothes to try and look for it. And that's when I got into a physical fight with her. And my dad says, "You can't do this anymore." And he dropped me off at a garage at 3 o'clock in the morning. And the saddest part was he wasn't angry. He was tired. He was very tired, I could see. And he hugged me and he said, "I love you, Kix, let me know when you're ready." And that broke my heart. Then I started crying, because I realized that there's nothing I can do that makes him angry anymore. He's just tired. He felt so useless, and he was dead. I mean, his work life he wasn't doing well at work. People that were working for him weren't doing well. It was like affecting everyone, the whole family. My brother, no contact with him. My mom didn't care anymore. Now, she said once she handed me and my brother over to my dad, we were his problem. Well, I was his problem now. Because that's all I was. I was a problem and a burden and a worry. So yeah, at the time I was in contact with this other guy who owned a rehab, and it was a farm. It wasn't much of a rehab. There was no program there, but I was in contact with him. And I remember that night when my dad dropped me at the garage, my friend picked me up in the car on the way to Boksburg. I called him, and he said, "Call me tomorrow when you're not high." So I was like, "I'm going to still be high tomorrow." But then I still called him the next day, and he said that they've got a bed available, and I told my dad about it, and he said anything that you'll plan never works out. Like, for all I know, I could be dropping you off at your dealer's house and giving him money for your stay, because that's how what my dad believed I'd do to him, and probably because if I had the opportunity, I probably would have at that stage. And I was just very broken. I mean, I was selling my soul and selling myself for drugs. Drugs was my everything. And I believed that I was going to die young from drugs. And I was okay with that. At the end, I was using to die. I wasn't using to get by anymore. I was using to die. And I didn't want to kill myself, like by suicide, by hanging myself or shooting myself. I wanted to do it slowly and gradually, because I felt like it was unfair to kill myself after my stepdad did that to my mom. So I was just using to die. I'd use copious amounts just to hoping I would die. And by the grace of God, each time I tried that, I'm still alive. So yeah, my dad called me. Sorry, I'm talking fast because we don't have too much time. So eventually my dad said, no, I've got this other rehab. It's like 5 hours away. You're going to go there for a year. And like, I was scared, but I was very willing. I was very, very willing. And this guy gave my dad a call, and my dad went through with it. And my dad's like, okay, cool, I'm fetching you tomorrow morning. And then I was like, no, I'm not ready. But for the first time when he said that to me, like, there was no idea in my head at all for months and months before that I thought to myself that I want to get clean and I want help. I mean, the last relapse just carried on. Normally I'd end up in rehab, but like, my family actually didn't. They started resenting rehabs and resenting NA because they'd see me go to meetings every night and then still see me come home high. So they actually started resenting the rooms and resenting God and resenting rehabs. They believed like there must be another way because this isn't working for her. And so yeah, I ended up in treatment. I was very scared. That day I was actually going to turn around and go to my other friend who we were going to get clean with each other in Cape Town with all the money we had on us. And my dad waited outside. He didn't trust me outside my mom's house or his house. He waited outside my old house where we used to live with my stepfather, and he said to me, I remember I was like 6 hours late. I made him wait for so many hours, and I wasn't planning on going anymore. And I remember he called me, and it sounded like he was crying, and he said, Kix, please, I can't do this anymore. And I told my friend to turn around and drop me off, and that day I went to treatment, and it was the scariest day of my life, or one of the scariest days of my life. But for the first time in so long, I felt a sign of relief, like something's been lifted off my shoulders, and I felt like for the first time in a very long time that I was going to be okay. And I didn't have that feeling for long. Hopping houses, not having a home, being on the streets, just doing, I knew I was going to be safe. And it was very tough coming off of all the drugs. I was very sick. I weighed 42 kilograms. I had to be carried out the shower because the withdrawals, it felt like the water that was hitting me from the shower were like knives stabbing into me. And I was in pure psychosis. I was stabbing people with toothbrushes and was telling everyone my mom killed my stepdad. And I was just in pure psychosis. I wasn't there. And, every morning that passed by, I would get closer and closer, and I would wake up early and I'd start to appreciate being clean. I remember waking up after the third day and I was like, wow, this is amazing. Like, it's as if like this was the first time I'd ever experienced something like that in my life. And I had this appreciation for life and this fight to just get my life back, because I was on the verge of death. This morning my mom said to me, Kirsten, I didn't think you'd make it to 19. And I mean, 19, that's very young. And she said, she nearly started crying. She's a very strong woman. And she said, I didn't think you'd make it to 19. And back then, if I look at it, I don't think I wouldn't have thought I'd make it to 19 either. So I did. The treatment center I was in wasn't much of a treatment center. It was pretty much just a farm, and we farmed, and we were able to go to church, which was great because then I found God. And I used to say I found God again, but I've never really known God like I do now. So that's when I found God, and I got baptized, and my higher power of my choice is God, and I'm a Christian. And yeah, so one of my strongest pillars is definitely God, because the way I see it is God saved my life, and He brought me to the rooms, and the rooms have brought me closer to Him. So He was my saving grace. And it took a while for my mom to come around. I thought that she would only come around in like 6 months of sobriety, but eventually my family started coming, and I started putting on weight. I got so fat, and they were like, you just look healthy. I was like, I don't look healthy. Like, I came crawling in there, like rolling out. But yeah, so the treatment center shut down, and I was terrified. I said to my dad, like, there's no way, I'm not ready. I'm going to, like, if I don't go somewhere else, I'm going to use drugs. And it's been a real struggle. Can I share? Okay. It's been a real struggle for me to ever go to a treatment center because of my age. You know, the laws are like you have to be under 18. Under 18, so it's very difficult to find treatment centers, and all the ones they do have, I've been to them all. So clearly it wasn't working for me. And I phoned my counsellor, his name's Justin Jansen, and I gave him a call and I told him the situation, that the rehab shut down, and they literally like left me outside the gates of the treatment centre that day and waited for my dad to fetch me with like black plastic bags. Like, it shut down very quick, and I was the only one left there. And so my counsellor obviously spoke to Gibson. He was working here at the time, and in Gibson's words, I didn't know this, but Gibson later shared it with me, that he said if Kirsten doesn't come here to do a step 4, she's going to die. And at that stage I was only 17, I was turning 18 in about 6 months, and Gibson let me come. And it was very nice because I was 2 months clean already, so as the day I got here I went straight into the program, and I was so appreciative with this opportunity I had, because I knew if I went back home, like, I would have used, and I wasn't even allowed back home to my dad's place because his girlfriend and I had, like, the last time we saw each other wasn't good, and he allowed me to come here, and I had so much appreciation and gratitude for it. I gave my all to this program, and I don't just say this because I work here. The program at Tranquility is completely different to what you'll ever get anywhere else, and I say that because before this I went to 12 treatment centres, and I was exposed to many different programs, and those who can stay here for the step 4, that's my favourite step, because that's what saved my life. Step 1 here, like, I realised how manageable everything became. I realised how powerless I was and how my life had become. Like, I looked at my life and I was like, I don't want this anymore. Step 2 and 3, luckily I built a relationship with God and I had my faith, and that was quite easy to get through. But step 4 was very difficult, and I was in this exact room that for the first time I was honest to Gibson. We were doing a step 4 with him, and I was honest about, well, I spoke about it for the first time, that I was raped at this age and that I'd been sexually molested by my older brothers for those years. And I started to deal with myself. I started to get real with my life, and it was hard, it was scary, but I had this, and I remember the one counselor, she was here at the time, and she said to me, you've got this beautiful gift, and it's a gift of desperation, and I pray that you hold on to that until the day you die. And since then, that's what I've done, because, you know, nothing can happen to me in recoveries then worse than what's happened to me in my past, and the pain of addiction, because anything that comes my way I can deal with, I can sort out. I've got the tools, I've got the support, I've got the people. In the active addiction I had nothing but my drugs. That's all I had, was nothing but my drugs and pretty much a bullet to my head while I'm killing myself. So I do my 5 pillars. I pray, I've got a good relationship with God. I do my step 10. Send it to Bianca. And yeah, so I do my step work. I've got a sponsor. I go to meetings. I do service, and I've got a relationship with my higher power and do step work. And it is that simple. It's 5 simple things that will save my life. And I know that, and there's been hard times. You know, today's actually a month ago. It was on the 18th of June that I went. Before I left, so I immigrated to Abu Dhabi with my dad, and he's there now. And my plan was to go there forever and to study further and all that. And I decided it was a good idea to see my ex-boyfriend one last time before I leave to go to Abu Dhabi. And when I was in Abu Dhabi, I found out I was pregnant. And in that country, if you are pregnant and you are not married, you'll get banned, you'll get arrested, you'll get banned from the UAE for life, you'll be sent here to serve your time in jail. It's very hectic, the law there for that. And I've mentally prepared myself. I had to gain the courage to tell my father, I had to gain the courage to tell my family, and everything changed again, and I had to go back to Joburg. And it was this time last month, actually at about this time it happened as well. That I found out the baby was dead. And at the time, I was destroyed. And I'll be honest with you, I was angry with God. I was angry with the rooms and NA and being clean and being sober, because I thought to myself, like, I'm 18 months clean. At that stage, I was 18 months clean. How could God do this to me? And, you know, it took me a while, and I cried a lot. I don't think I stopped crying from the minute I heard. And maybe it's a bit soon to say this, but this is how I feel, that everything does happen for a reason. And I was devastated, but with my beliefs, I believe my child's in heaven, and I'm okay with that. And there was clearly something wrong, And it was very traumatic. And then I was in and out of hospital, and I would have these massive pains, and I was waiting for surgery, and it was very traumatic. And I literally passed the baby, like, and saw it all and stuff. So it was very traumatic for me, and I don't think I would have been clean if it wasn't for you guys. I think I probably would have been using if it wasn't for you guys, as scary as that sounds. But the support that I've got from Gibson, he called me during it, the support that I got from all my work colleagues, from you guys on a daily basis, making me smile, making me happy, it has made me get through this. It's my good friends in the fellowship that take me to my meetings, and I do what's necessary. You know, at that moment I thought that I'm just going to give up, and I was too scared to use. I actually just wanted to die, because I knew that I don't want to use. I'm too scared to do that. I've got too much pride. I just want to die. And you know, now I'm okay with it, and now I believe my baby's in heaven, and everything happens for a reason, and in my own timing I will have a child when it's good and I'm married and things are good. But yeah, it was very difficult. But see, in recovery you're going to have these challenges, and this was my first big one. And I remember Gibson actually said something to me, and that's when I switched. He said to me, this is serious, like, I think, I forgot the exact words, but he said, you know, this is serious, or it's a shit situation, but it's not the end of the world. Like, you have to, and that's when I realized I have to pick myself up. I did the prayer with Gibson, and I let the baby go. Because the longer I hold on to it, the longer I hold myself down. And yeah, since I've been back, so Gibson I'm lucky enough that he let me stay here, because I love you guys. And I plan to stay here. Like, this is my home. Tranquility is my home. My brother's overseas, my dad's overseas, and my mom's here, which is nice, but it's kind of like my whole family's everywhere. But this is where I feel at home. This is where my heart is, and this is what my passion is. I just want to help others. And thank you to everyone here that's made been so significant in my recovery. Even the people that have just came here. If it wasn't for you guys, I wouldn't be here. And you know, my sister shared something with me this morning, and it made me realize how far I've come. She said to me, she wouldn't wake up in the morning. I was like, come Jody, wake up, you're going to be late for school. And she said, I went to bed late. And I said, yeah, I could see, because you were trying to wake me up. And she said, no, Kiki, I always do that. When you're sleeping, I get scared, so I always stay up so I can make sure you're still breathing. And that's what this little child goes through, or goes through her head when someone's sleeping at night, because of obviously the old me, that she thought like her sister's just going to die. So I'm so grateful for recovery, for all of you guys, for Tranquility, for people that show us that recovery is possible, for the newcomers that show me why I should stay, and for Gibson, thank you, and thank you to God for giving me this opportunity to share with you and to be alive. I might be 19 years old, but I'm still 19 months old. But thank you, everyone.